A lot of students have problems with the TOEFL speaking part. And, there's four parts. It's a lot to do. So we will go through specifically the first question. So we'll focus on that deep dive on the first question. And you'll see it's a lot more simple than you might think. Here, I will be going through this file. I will leave it linked below in the description for you available to download. So here we'll just go through a quick guide for the TOEFL test, specifically the speaking, and even more specifically, question one. Having a look, just a brief overview of what the task one or the speaking question one is about. So altogether, it's 60 seconds, not that long. You do thankfully get some preparation time. It's obviously not that long, it's about 15 seconds. And then you have 45 seconds to speak. Here in the TOEFL, they time everything. They make sure everything is timed. So it's very specific. It doesn't really give you much flexibility. So you kind of need to fit what you want to say in this small criteria and time frame. But out of all of the questions in the TOEFL, question one is the best in my opinion. And that is because it is an opinion-based question. So you are free to kind of talk about whatever you want to in the theme of the question. You typically get four types of questions. You get a personal preference, you get a agree or disagree, three choices to choose from, or advantages and disadvantages. So here are some examples that you'll be able to look through. Here for the personal preference, do you prefer reading physical books or maybe more digital books? Easy topic, not too hard, not too difficult. Uh, Following that, agree or disagree. Some people might agree that all companies should switch to remote work, while others feel that perhaps in-person meetings and working together in the same space might be preferable. It might be better. You might have three choices to choose from, getting spoiled with choices. Working alone on a project, working with a partner on your last assignment, working in a group. Which do you like? Which one do you prefer? It doesn't really matter. You might prefer in a group. You might be someone who works better alone. The examiners don't really care which option you choose, so long as you can explain it very thoroughly. Following that, advantages and disadvantages. Some teenagers work while studying in college. Please discuss the advantages and disadvantages of having a part-time job while in college. So there you do kind of need to discuss. They tell you directly, two sides. Might seem a little bit harder because they're giving you less flexibility. You're not really choosing. You have to speak on the advantages and disadvantages. But regardless, all of these topics, they are pretty cool, right? Next part here is the first tip. So you need to pick a side and stick to it, right? So what really does that mean? If we have a look at some of these sample questions, would you prefer to work one job your entire life or switch jobs every 5 years? So remember, they do give you 15 seconds to prepare. So in those 15 seconds, you don't want to waste it. Every second is precious. So you need to choose. Do you want to work for one job or do you want to change jobs every 5 years? And you need to pick that option that you like, that you prefer, and stick to it. Don't, 4 seconds later think, okay, I might actually prefer sticking to one job and working up the ladder, right? And sure, you can switch options, right? You can do whatever you want in those 15 seconds, but now you have 4 seconds less to think of examples or think of what you want to say. So quickly pick an option. I like to pick it even while the instructions and while the question is being read to me. So, they read it first and they tell you how much time you have. They tell you your preparation time. They tell you when it's done. So you do have a couple of seconds beforehand just to think. So before they even give me the 15 seconds, I'm already choosing a topic. I already have a topic in mind and I know what I want to say. So let's have a look at this example question. Would you prefer to work at one job your entire life or switch jobs every 5 years? Sample response. Well, I'd say I definitely think it is better to switch jobs every 5 years because staying in the same place too long can become boring and new jobs are more exciting. I remember when I worked at a cafe, and at first everything was fun and interesting, but after a few years, I got tired of the routine. On top of that, starting a new job gives me the chance to learn new skills and meet different people. For example, after leaving the cafe, I started working at a bookstore, which was very different and helped me grow. So, overall, if I had to choose, I would definitely prefer changing jobs every 5 years. So, I gave two examples there. I read through it pretty quickly. Of course, some people might speak slower, some people might have one more detailed example. It doesn't matter. But what does matter in this point, pick a side and stick to it. Next, taking notes. So you are able to take notes in the TOEFL speaking part one. However, in those 15 seconds, I personally don't really take notes. It's too little time for me to write things down. For some of my students, they do prefer to write things down, one or two words, and that is totally okay. It's up to you. In parts two, three, and four of TOEFL speaking, there will be enough time, and you do need to take notes for all those different parts, which we will get into in a later video. However, here, once you've gone through the first point and you've picked an option that you like, you picked a side or topic, you do need to think of a few things. What do we think about in those 15 seconds? So a few things you need to have is a reason. If you choose to work at one job your entire life, or if you choose to change jobs every few years, why? Right? What is your reason for choosing that? And after you give your reason, which backs up your opinion, you need to provide a personal example. Remember, this question is about your opinion. So it makes sense. Provide with me a personal example, right? Just to illustrate and explain what happened. It doesn't need to be real, of course. I don't know you personally, but it's best if you do give a real example, right? So, having a look at this example question, do you agree or disagree? So, agree or disagree question. Co-workers make the best friends, right? As the examiner is reading that, or as I'm listening to the question, I'm already thinking, okay, co-workers, I've made a few co-worker friends. Why not? Let me agree. So you can physically write down agree or disagree, or just A or D if you disagree. Remember to keep your notes quick, right? 15 seconds will fly by. And then why do you agree, right? Why do you disagree? Do you agree coworkers make the best friends? Maybe because you get to share tasks and that's how your friendship is built through these tasks because you're supporting each other at work. Or maybe you disagree because you're spending the time together, but it's mostly focused on work and less about your personal life. Doesn't matter, whichever reasons you pick. And then examples, do you have a friend from the office that you can tell me about? Who you meet at lunch, you have coffee together afterwards, you meet up on the weekend. And it might be difficult at the beginning to really do notes efficiently. Notes is a unique skill to have, especially with time pressure. It is important. Over time, you will get better at it, right? Write in one word, two words, abbreviations, letters, special characters, however you want to do your notes. But the more you do it, the quicker and more efficient you will be at it. So for me personally, I omit my notes altogether. It works for me, it works for some of my students. Just see what works best for you, of course. Next, which is a simple point, just be relaxed, right? The best way to really present yourself, to give your opinion and communicate things is just to be relaxed. It might be stressful, especially at the beginning, it's the first part, and you might not be that comfortable speaking in English. And, one of the best ways to improve casualness, confidence, is just to imagine you're speaking to a friend or you're speaking to a family member. A lot of my students, I tell them, because I do a lot of practices with them, I tell them, just imagine you're speaking to me. Over time, a lot of my students, they get very comfortable with me. They are able to express their opinion really well. When they're talking, they're smiling, they're laughing, they're really enjoying it. And that is the attitude and the feeling you need to bring with you to the examination room. So just be able to be as genuine as possible. Plus, part one is the only one that you're going to give your opinion. So you might as well be confident, speak from the heart, and just be as open as possible. Be as genuine as you can. Point number four, the second last point. You need to prepare beforehand. Like with any test, you need to prepare. There's things you can do to prepare. There are some things that we can't prepare for. We can't prepare for the type of question. We don't know what question they'll ask. It changes all the time. We will never know what type of question. Some questions even throw me off and surprise me. Those are the things we can't prepare for, but we can prepare in terms of familiarity, becoming more familiar with the questions, with the themes of these questions. The more questions you answer, the more you realize they like to talk or ask questions about your work, your hobbies, casual things that you might speak about with someone you met on vacation, or you're traveling and you're just trying to get to know the locals. So you might speak with them on family. It's a student that is studying in your country, so you ask them, what are they studying? What's their opinion about your culture or your food? These are general everyday topics. So be prepared and expect those types of topics. Prepare as much as you can, get the idea, and that's it. All right. Now, another example question. Let's have a look. What are the advantages and disadvantages of using smartphones every day? Right. So in those 15 seconds, okay, I immediately think, okay, some advantages of using it every day. Perhaps it's very convenient. You can talk with family members across the globe. From disadvantages, maybe it takes a lot of your time. People are getting addicted to phones. These are the very first thoughts that are popping up in my head. So I immediately pick them, and that's that, right? Of course, if I had 40 seconds or 2 minutes, I could think of way better examples. However, your reasons and examples, the examiner is not going to judge it on how relevant or how amazing is your idea. It can be the simplest idea possible, but how do you explain it? Do you explain it very thoroughly, very coherently, very easy to understand? So that's how you must do it, right? So let's see. Right, let's start off. While using smartphones every day has both advantages and disadvantages. One advantage is that they make communication very easy. For example, I can quickly message my friend or join online classes without any problem. But a disadvantage is that smartphones can be distracting. Sometimes I spend too much time on social media instead of studying or doing other important tasks. So while smartphones are very useful for staying connected, they can also take up much time of they can also take up too much of our time, right? So overall, that's a very simple point, right? No extreme vocabulary, no super intense words, super academic. Everything is simple, explained very thoroughly. And that's what the examiners want. There are other ways to prepare, and there are other ways to just be more confident and feel more secure in your responses, such as point number 5, templates, right? So templates are great. You get templates in writing, you get templates in speaking, you get templates in a lot of different sections. So here it just helps you to structure your response, to know what to say first, to know what to say second or third, and what you need to say last. It it takes your thoughts, right? You're thinking of a bunch of things and it organizes it, it structures it very quickly. Right? You might be thinking of communication with smartphones, but how do you introduce that, you know? So it's always important to have some templates just to structure and connect all of these points and ideas that you have in your mind, right? There are probably hundreds of different templates. Don't learn them all. That will be pointless. You're only going to do the part one once, question two once, right? And if you're preparing 10 different templates, I mean, you're not going to be that confident with all 10, and you might even worry, which one should I pick here? So have a few templates, two, maybe three. Make sure they are flexible for different topics and stick to that. If you practice a lot, you're using the same templates, so many times, you're going to be really confident and you're going to use those templates without even thinking. So, for the examiner, it will be their first time hearing you use this template. But for you, you've said it hundreds of times, right? Because you practice so much, hopefully. So definitely use templates, have a few that you're comfortable with, that you like. There are some that I personally like. For example, if we go to this nice table overall, I really like to say to illustrate. I like using that. It's an easy word, somewhat academic. It's great to use. You might have in your list, for conclusion, you might say to sum up or, overall, to conclude. Um, so you choose some templates that you prefer, have a look through that. Definitely, here are some templates, the information of what you want to do, going through this in the correct structure, the timing of how long you want to spend per section and per point of information. And remember, this is just part one. So have a look through this file. I'll leave it in the description, as I said, available for you to download. Be confident, and I'm sure everything will be all right. Usually, this is kind of exactly how I handle my classes. And at this point, I like to ask my students, if they have any questions. So if you have any questions, leave it in the comments and I'll make sure to answer it when I can. Thank you for listening. Thank you for going along. We will have a look at questions 2, 3, and 4 in the future. For now, well done and see you then.